Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Monday Night Magic with your co-hosts, my amazing, incredible friend, Ken Close, who is an epigeneer, and myself, Lori Falk, a health and wellness coach. And collectively, we are, bar none, your favorite epigenetic geeks. And why do we know that? Because you don't know any other ones. So on these episodes, what we generally do is we do focus on the topic of epigenetics and take a deep dive into how you can better consciously create a reality that you love and enjoy. So tonight we're going to talk about the equation of love. And we start with Mark Twain's famous quote, "You can't depend on your eyes when your imagination is out of focus." You can't depend on your eyes when your imagination is out of focus. So maybe that was what was wrong with my Wi-Fi. It was out of focus. We
Right?
needed to imagine it being clearer, and it is. So we're going to talk about that equation of love and looking at it through that lens of focus. Everything on the left side are the things we are doing and utilizing to create what's on the right side. What's on the right side is our 3D reality, hopefully the reality that our heart truly desires. And if what's on the right side of the equation isn't what your heart truly desires, then the only answer is to look at the left side and make sure that you are in vibrational alignment with what it is your heart desires.
So if we,
What do you think about
how many of you guys got a pen and paper? Anybody taking notes tonight? Awesome. So if you could do this on your paper, just put an equal sign somewhere in the middle. There's an equals sign, right? We know we're talking about equations, so we're going to get mathematical, right? Let's get a little let's start to engineer some things. So if you got an equal sign in the middle of your paper, then you'll see what Lori is saying. Typically, when we have an equal sign, everything on the right side of the equal sign is a result. It's the sum, right? It is the end of the equation. It's what has happened due to what was on the left side. So on the left side are all the variables, right? Everything that we're going to crunch into the equation, the numbers, to produce what's on the right side of the equal sign, AKA the result. So as Lori's saying this, if we are looking at a life by design, or we're looking at an intentional, purposeful life, or there's something we desire, anything that we desire, the end result is on the right side of the equals. Does that make sense, everybody? So everything on the right side is the end product. It's done. So if we walk up and look in the mirror, everything you see in that mirror is the end product. All right. So it's the result of all you've done up to that moment, right? Because how many of you were just born today? Anybody? How about just this second? No, nobody. Well, that's because all of your time invested in living and all of life's investment in you over that period of time is the result of this present moment. This is what we get to see. I love this. This, I guess I might say, responsibility, right? Because it's now my responsibility to allow what I see in the mirror to be my creation. It is my creation. I did that, and all of you guys did the creation of you. And kudos on you. Everybody high five me. Here we go. Right? Good job. Because where you are now, right, is an accomplishment. And in that quote from Mark Twain, when our imagination is out of focus, right, this is a problem. It tends to be a problem because when something is out of focus, what's your result? What's on the other side of the equal sign? What's on the right side? It's random. It's disorder. It's maybe chaos, when there's really no, well, if we don't care what the result is on the other side of the equal sign, right? If we don't care, then anything we get probably should be accepted, right? But if we're building a life by design or intentional, then the things that are on the left side of this equation, on the left side of this equal sign, must be diligent, must be clear, must be focused. Okay, so there are, I don't know, there's several concepts when we start talking about designing a life or designing something. And Lori, you do a lot of intention work, right? Creating intentions, yes?
100% every day with all my clients
Yep.
and
So how
myself
important,
and my boss.
and how important is that?
It's essential because the fact of the matter is that we are co-creative forces with the universe. So we're either going to do it consciously or unconsciously. It's going to happen either way. So the clearer you are about what it is you want to create, and the stronger that intention is that you're putting out to the universe, the greater the chances are you're going to find success with it.
100%. So let's look at some of the aspects that are on the right side of the equal sign, the result. So bear with me a second, because this might push you into a gray zone. Maybe some of our audiences hear a lot. This is normal, right? So every one of your senses, what you see, what you hear, what you taste, what you feel, is a result. It's on the right side of the equation. Everything you see, touch, feel, and taste is already done, right? This is the sensory perception of your life. So the environment, everything out there, everything you're touching, tasting, seeing, is already fixed. It's made. It's just now created, but it's also tangible, three-dimensional matter. So you can't touch something that you can't see, right? I mean, we can visualize things, but if you were to try to get a textile response from the nerves within your hands, it requires some diligence, some touching. Now, I know that there's a very distinct possibility that we can create enough significance in the mind to literally feel something that's not there. That's possible. And a lot of times that's a result of a trauma. A lot of times it's not done purposefully. Now, there are practices in which we can do things diligently and on purpose to maybe psych out the senses, right? Here's an example. If you touch an ice cube, it's cold, right? However, there are practices in which we can actually be influenced by cold and it not feel cold. And Wim Hof, all you guys, maybe some of you guys know Wim Hof, has a practice in which through breathing techniques that we can dim down the sensory inputs to the body. And we can actually go into cold plunges or cold showers or experiences where the environment is extremely severe and we're not feeling the effects in the three-dimensional body. Okay. And you guys should take a look at some of those practices, those breathing techniques, because we can definitely get beyond the environment by some breathing techniques. And this is important because when the environment, remember, that's on the right side of the equal sign, it's already done. When it doesn't match what you want, then we have to start altering the things on the left side of the equation, what we're perceiving. Okay. The senses are all taking in content. What your eyes are taking in, what your olfactory system is taking in, what your textile system is taking in, all of that is interpreted by the brain. And so I can't pretend to know exactly what your color blue looks like from your mind's eye. I know what mine looks like, right? I can't really say that the scent of roses is pleasurable to me, but may remind you of a partner or someone in your life that created a trauma, right? I may not have the same response to that olfactory nerve intake. So this is my point here is that if we want something different in our lives, the equation, that equal sign is a significant separator between what is in the present moment and how we've designed it, right? Does that make sense? So, Lori, have you ever has there been a scent that triggers some response within you?
Oh my goodness. You know, the very first time I channeled, I smelt my mother's body. Nothing smells like your mom. Nothing. It was as if she was right there in the room with me physically, and she had died 8 years earlier.
Wow.
Not kidding. Yeah. So
Anybody else have that experience?
that's not a normal experience. Usually it's like you smell someone else's perfume on another person or cologne, and you think of the person that you loved when they were wearing it, and it's as if they're there too. So I guess physical or non-physical, it doesn't matter. The smell is so ingrained in us, and there's such a memory around it that it triggers all these emotional responses.
So this is this tangible end result. And so as we build these equations, I want this to be an empowering opportunity where you can be triggered. And let's unpack that for just a minute. What does triggering mean? When we are feeling an emotional response, because emotion is to these bodies as thought is to this brain. This is the dance, right? The brain in action is thought. The body in response is emotion. Okay. So sit with that for just a second so you can kind of see the blueprint of how these two interact, the body and the mind or the brain. And then the end result is an experience, because the two merged together is called an experience. You have a thought, you have a feeling, that's an experience. Now, the body doesn't know the difference, and some of you have heard me say this before, the body does not know the difference between an experience you're having in this three-dimensional world or one you make up in your mind. It doesn't know the difference. Its job is to feel it, is to embody it, okay? So as we embody this experience, the body is either in one of two conditions, sympathetic or parasympathetic, fight or flight, or rest and repair, right? And so this is significant because the longer the body is in repair mode, the healthier it is. Its natural state, everybody, natural state of your body is health. It's healing. Every second, it's healing. That's its natural state. We have to go to work through thought processes, perceptions, beliefs, behaviors, concepts to knock it out of balance. We have to work at it. And you're thinking, wait a minute, that's pretty easy for me. I don't have to work at it. I can knock myself out of balance all the time. Every day I'm in it, right? But no, this is truth. This is work. Now, the reason it doesn't feel like it's work to knock it out of balance is because it's been practiced so long, right? You've done it over and over again to where it's almost autonomic. It's automatic. So no different than, say, learning how to dribble a basketball, right? How many of you guys have ever tried dribbling a basketball, and maybe the very first time you bounce it and it bounces off your toe or whatever, or it doesn't come back up to your hand because you didn't do it hard enough, whatever. It's not perfect, right? But the more you practice it, the better you get at dribbling that ball. Then you go into maybe shooting or some of the other practices of actually playing basketball. All right. The point is that the more you practice, the better you get at it. And that's great. So this also is the exact same phenomenon when you practice poor behavior, when you practice emotional trauma, when you practice rehearsal of past events. I was just in a meeting on Saturday with a group, and we're sitting there, and one of the participants is telling us a story about an incident with a coworker, and I could see the story unfolding within the body. I could feel the emotions starting to grow and come from this body. And interestingly enough, I could feel another participant, a friend next to me, starting to get on board with those emotions. Anybody ever done that? You're talking about a story to someone, and you're trying to get them to get on board with you, right? Like, do you believe me? Are you on my side? That kind of thing. And guess what happens? Your body starts to have a response, an emotional response based on something that already happened, and it's reliving it right now. And then the interesting part about that, it starts to have a frequency. It has a transmission. The body, folks, these are antennas. These bodies are antennas that send and receive information. If you don't believe me, how many of you ever met somebody brand new and you just go, ugh, right? Or you just love them automatically? You know, you're receiving content all the time. So you can get on board with someone else's emotion, feeling, story, and your body, because you can relate, will start to feel the same thing. Now, guess what? When you have one body within a frequency or a signal, and you have another body within the same frequency or signal, they amplify each other. Okay? Have you ever been to a ball game and you're on the winning side? Everybody's cheering and happy and fun and screaming and hollering, right? And maybe you got there and you were in a bad mood. How long did that last? Right? It's really hard to stay within an incoherent signal when you're surrounded by another signal. Does that make sense? So frequency, folks, everything is energy, and every energy form has its own frequency. And you, as a body in space and time, also have a frequency. And you can either be coherent or incoherent with your environment. And so we talked about environment a bit, the senses, how they see the environment, how they smell the environment, how they taste and touch the environment. And some of that triggers old memories, and it comes right back to the present moment, and you start to feel it. And guess what? The body's right there in that trauma again, right there. So what do we do about that? What do we do about that? I mean, have you ever been in the midst of a story with someone else and you start to feel their emotion? What do we do about that? You know, you want to care about your friend. You want to show that you're compassionate, right? What do you do about that? Because when you get on board with their trauma or their anger or their lack or their fear, your body moves from into that stress response, right into that parasympathetic nervous system, and you're no longer healing. Is that what we want? You know, I mean, you may love somebody dearly, but if we are on board with the same frequency that they're on board with, no matter how much we love them, if they're in suffering, if they are in disrepair, if they're in disease, we're not any good at helping them if we're in the same frequency. We're not going to be any good helping them. How many times have you guys been on an airplane and the steward or stewardess stands up in front of you and says, in case of cabin decompression, place your oxygen mask on first and then assist others? Why? You can't assist anybody if you're passed out, right? You can't help anybody if you're incoherent from lack of oxygen. Same thing if you are in a stress response along with the person with you. All you're doing is amplifying the signal and adding the incoherent energy to the consciousness, the overall global consciousness. Right? Laura, you want to add to that?
I do, because the fact of the matter is some of us are actually empaths, and we have this experience often and a lot where we can feel what other people are feeling. Well, here is the problem with that. You're getting into coherence with that energy pattern that they have, and you start to process their emotions for them. And when you're processing their emotions for them, they lighten up because you're doing the work for them. Well, that may seem very kind and very loving, but the truth of the matter is that they needed that experience. You don't know what they needed it for, but the universe brought it to them, so they needed it. Now, if you're processing it for them, guess what? They have to go attract another experience to have that situation occur so that they can get the lesson from it. So you're not doing anyone a favor, and you're making it way worse than yourself and taking your body out of that rest and reset state that we need to be in more often than not.
100%. So there's, again, we're talking about equations. We're talking about results, things on the right side of the equal sign. Those are all results, right? You're on board with someone's story. That's a result. We are having an incoherent signal, or we're amplifying someone else's disorder, a result. So the adjustable part is prior to that, or even in the midst of that. As I was telling you the story in the meeting on Saturday, the person's talking about this story. It is very kind. It is very heart-centered to say, hold on a second. How do you feel right now? How do you feel right now? And look at them, because you can tell, you'll be able to tell, how do you feel right now? And they're like, man, I'm just mad. I'm like, yeah, the presence of that past experience. Is that what you want? Is that what you want? And if their answer is no, then the most important thing to demonstrate is that awareness around what they just did, what just happened right there, and practice something different. Lori, in the green room, she was showing me this cool picture on the side of a building of how we can reframe certain things, right? I love this picture.
When I look at this, I think these are the questions that take someone out of their head and into their heart. If you want to have a really deep, meaningful, collaborative, compassionate conversation, you got to get people out of their heads and into their hearts. So instead of asking someone, how are you? Ask them, how are you really? How are you really? Now, doesn't that, just the way it felt, you know the person cares. They're not just going, well, how are you today? Or instead of saying, what's new? How about this? What title would you give this chapter in your life? Holy man, if somebody asked me that, I'd be like, they really care. They really care about what I have to say and what's going on with me. And how many times you meet someone new and you say, what do you do? How about, what are you passionate about? That's a whole different story. A whole different story. You ask the average person, what do they do? And they're going to give you their job title. Well, whoop-de-doo. That doesn't tell you who they are or what they're passionate about. Here's one. How's work? Oh, yeah. You're not going to get very far with that. But if you say, what's the most fulfilling part about what you do? Even if they don't love their jobs, they're going to find something positive to share with you. And how many times have you said to someone, is something wrong? What if instead you said, what do you need right now more than anything? Wow. That's going to take the anger away. That's going to take the combativeness away. That's going to get people right in their heart. What do you need right now more than anything? And you might even add, and how can I help you with that? So I encourage you that really and truly, my new mantra is conscious, compassionate, collaborative conversation. You've got to change the way you're interacting with people and really try to understand how other people are feeling, what other people are experiencing. It's from that place that you have more common ground. It's from that place that you care about what the results are, what's going to happen next. It's from that place that you can understand why they're acting and reacting the way they are. Send this to all the global leaders you know, please.
You know, and there has to be a willingness to do this. So as we're moving forward in our lives, I love those questions. They're just a better question. And when we're looking at manifestation is a product of questioning. You know, who am I? What do I want now? You know, what's the best version of myself? Because the universe will answer those for you. Now, if we say, how can things get any worse? Woohoo, watch out. Because, you know, that's a question. And when we say it, it's usually there's a lot of emotion attached to that. And the reason I'm bringing up emotions because I want you to understand that the driving force of our what we draw into us is our emotion. It is the driver. It is the magnetic attraction. Okay, it drives out there. It grabs like frequencies, aligned coherent frequencies, and pulls them into you. So if you ask the question, and you're probably not feeling very well when you're like, damn it, how can the things get any worse? Right. And so that goes out and there's matched frequencies. And what comes back are examples of how things can get worse. I mean, a flat tire, right? An unforeseen bill that pops up, or somebody sending us an email, you know, or we get fired from our job, or I don't know, just lots of different things. Just be very cognitive of these questions that we're asking. Because on the right side of the equal sign is the result of the question that was on the left side of the equal sign. And so, like I said, when you draw on that equal sign on your paper, take a look. The end result, the three-dimensional tangible you and life, it's your life on that. That's all on the right side. What created it was everything that you've done up to this point. Okay. All right.
Absolutely. And I'm going to send this to you guys. It's something I use with all my clients. They're called connecting questions. I mean, your job is to manage your emotional state. Your job is to get in alignment with what it is you're going to want to create. So asking questions that are disconnecting just puts you into a win-lose mindset versus asking connecting questions. What's my intent in this moment? What wants to be born? What are my choices in this situation? What's working? I guarantee you something's always working. Even on the worst day when you think everything is going to hell in a handbasket, something's always working. And if you can shift out of that negative energy into what is working, it changes your entire energy, which changes the entire signal that you're sending out, which enables you to get in alignment with what it is you want. Because here's the deal, guys. We are like radio receivers. And if you are wanting to listen to country western music and you set that receiver to a jazz station, there is no way you're getting country western music. And then you start playing with the dial, and then it starts getting a little fuzzy, and then you realize you got to tune it in. You're exactly the same way. Exactly the same way. And I want you to think about something. Where is the music? You're tuning the dials. Where's the music?
Mm-hmm.
It's right here. It's right here in your environment. All you're doing is tuning that receiver. So everything else that you are wanting to create in your life, to have in your life, the love you want to have, the relationship you want to have, the joy you want to feel, it's all right here. even the money you want. It's all right here. But your obligation, your number one project is to ensure that you are a vibrational alignment to attracting it in. Because just like the music, it's all right here.
As we look at the environment, and in epigenetics, as we talked about being epigeneers, and by the way, every single one of you is an epigeneer, that meaning that you are engineering your genetic structures every second to the tune of 800,000 cells per second. That's you. It's happening. So we're all you guys are epigeneers. When we're looking at the epigenetic, epi means above or beyond, and genetic, of course, is the code structures that builds you cell by cell. So when we're looking at above and beyond, outside of the cell, its influence on this genetic structure, the environment. Epigenetics says that it's the environment that signals the gene. So because the organism, these bodies, need to be able to survive in their environment. So it's the environment that signals the gene so that the host, aka these bodies, can survive in whatever environment they're in. Like Lori and I were talking earlier today, she had a little bit of sunshine in her environment. I didn't. I had gray skies. Okay. So, for me to go outside and have the sun infuse me with, say, some vitamin D production, that's probably not going to happen. But my body didn't just land here this minute. It has been acclimated to my environment, so it understands and still can survive within maybe a cloudy day, right? And so people say, there are conditions in which you can be vitamin D deficient, and so more UV, more sun exposure, that kind of thing helps. But just know one thing I want everyone to understand, and try to really dig into this for a minute, is that you are the master contributor to the signaling of your genetic code. You. When I say you, I'm not necessarily talking about the one that you see in the mirror, but I'm talking about the you that has a belief structure, the you that has perceptions, the you that is listening to the mind that's chattering. There's another you. It's an awareness. Okay, there's a level of awareness that is listening or hearing the mind's chatter when it's going on. There's another you that has belief structures that guides what you do. So 97% of the genetic code that creates every cell in your body is an adaptive gene. It's an adaptive gene, and it's reading the environment. Only 3% of that genetic code says it's going to be a bone cell, skin cell, muscle cell, whatever. 3%. The rest is saying and asking the question, to what quality and kind? And when we have an emotional response, when we have a thought, the thought is an electrical charge. An emotional response is a magnetic charge. And the two create this electromagnetic signal that influences 97% of the adaptive gene, of that code. All right. And so if we are in a high charged emotion of anger, then 97% of the codes written to those, what I say earlier, 800,000 cells per second, 97% of that code is written under anger. And the cell structures, these bodies, just simply become a vessel best equipped under the conditions of anger. Best equipped under the conditions of anger. Doesn't mean you can't process love. Doesn't mean you can't process gratitude. It's just best conditioned under anger. Now, that's true if that's what we're doing most of the time. And how many times have you met someone? I know none of you guys, but have you met someone who might have an angry temperament? Anybody know anybody like that? How about someone that might have a negative temperament? Maybe anybody out there? One that might be seemingly to live in lack or victimhood. Anybody know anybody out there? None of you, I know. It's not you guys, but somebody out there, you may know somebody like that. So the key thing is that that's the signaling that those 800,000 cells per second is receiving. And this body, this becomes that that environmental influence. Now, and the reason it's, when I say environment, some of you guys might be saying, well, I look out the window, that's my environment. The external environment of the cell is the internal environment of your body. Okay. So the internal environment is a frequency based on your thoughts and your feelings, and thoughts are creating the feelings, like I said. So now look at how much control you have over who you are, over what this body is. Look at the amount of opportunity you have to build a body of whatever kind and quality you wish. So the interesting part about that is that we tend to point the finger out there at some cause. Yeah, but that coworker of mine keeps telling me that, they're better than me. So that must be true. Whatever the case is, or, I was dumped by one I loved. I must be no good. I must not be worthy of love. See, this is a story that we tend to get on board with. And most of these stories have an origin of way back when we really weren't as wise and as intelligent as we are now, right? We were just an influential young little one that probably took on a belief structure that we didn't know any better. We can now take, and on the left side of the equal sign, we can start building a model to say that I now know that 800,000 cells per second are being created in my body, and I am not going to be labeled as an angry temperament. I am not going to allow this present moment to dictate my future. I'm going to create it on purpose. So now, the interesting part is maybe not everybody's going to adopt this particular mindset. Maybe some don't feel you're strong enough to adopt this mindset or to take on this challenge. Or maybe you just don't know how, right? Just don't know exactly how to do what I'm talking about. It's important that you can't fail unless you don't try, right? So if we are in this present moment and we are triggered by a response out there, I don't know, maybe you got cut off in traffic. Maybe that was as simple as that, got cut off in traffic. And you have an emotional response. Pay attention to that. Pay attention to that. And then when you pay attention to that, now where is it happening in the body? Where exactly is this emotional response? How many of you guys have ever had butterflies in your stomach, right? Or tension in your neck? And I like to call butterflies in my stomach my rainbows. I got little rainbows going on in my stomach when I'm having this response, right? But there's other conditions within the stomach, such as tightness, right? Or even expansion. So our body is separated into 7 essentially energy centers or chakras. You've heard of this? 7 areas of the body. The very lowest section is called the root chakra. This is the source of life, right? This is our very fundamental basis of life. And this is what we as fetuses, as young babies, start to believe life is, that's where the meaning is. And so it keeps growing, but that's essentially the fundamental level of life. The second center is around the stomach or the sacral. It's the sacral center. That's kind of associated with our safety, how we feel safe in this world, in our life, in our skin, in our relationships, how we feel safe. Okay, the third one up is the solar plexus. This is, again, the solar plexus right around in the lower rib cage area of the body, where our diaphragm moves up and down and helps us breathe. The solar plexus is essentially our willpower, our will to live, our feeling of empowered within life, right? In the body. The next one is the fourth center, or the heart. This is where our passion lives, our love, our compassion, our desires. These things live within the heart. This is that center. Now, we're starting to move up in frequency at the same time as we move up in the body. From the lower three are our survival centers, the survival centers. The heart is the transitional area. The fourth center, our transitional center, where we start to move into creativity, love, abundance, connectivity. Okay. The fifth center is our throat chakra, where we are expressive. This is how we express life, how we receive information. It's also connected to the arms and shoulders, where we're touching and receiving information. That's how this textile system works. We can touch our world. It touches us. This is a communication, right? Touching is a communication model as well, right? So is our voice. Some people sing. That's an amazing communications model. I love it. I can't sing. Well, I sing great in the shower, but I don't sing anywhere else. But the point is we can express through that voice. Now, the next one up is our sixth center, or the pineal gland. Some will call that our third eye. This is where the pineal gland has a very distinct purpose, where it uses energy within to vibrate signals out, and it receives vibrational signals in. This is essentially our transducer, or our antenna. It literally is a crystalline structure within that gland that shimmers, essentially based on what we would call the piezoelectric effect. So as we compress it, it shimmers a frequency out. As frequencies impale into it, it creates a electrical charge, and we can interpret that like an antenna. Like Lori was saying, when you tune in a radio station on your car, it's weeding out all other signals, and it's the antenna that has the information on all channels. All channels are there on the antenna. We're receiving all information on our antenna, but we just tune in to one, right? This is done through that pineal system. It also has a point of view, so we can see and receive and transmit content. And then we have the crown chakra. This is essentially our God sense. This is where we create the spiritual connection to the divine, right? This is where we're highly, highly vibrational beings. This is our spiritual sense. And each one of these centers have organs, systems that are affected by the energy in each one of those. When we have a disease, you can almost tell what's causing it by where it exists in the body. How many of you guys know anybody that's got a thyroid issue, right? Thyroid conditions, that kind of thing. Where is that? It's in the fifth center, isn't it? Most, probably 100%, if not 99.9% of the time, the one that's suffering from a thyroid condition probably feels suppressed in their communications, down regulating in their importance of their voice or what they express, reduced or pressed away when they speak or try to transmit. There's a lowering of energy when they can't speak. And yes, not speaking their truth is another. When you're not authentic, when you are not being the same you in everywhere, the inauthenticity starts to lower energy there, right? So we need to look at that kind of part of the body and listen to it and find out if we are out of alignment, right? Make sense? Okay. The reason I'm talking about that is because I want to kind of show a little bit about how consciousness and this coherent signaling is we're all connected to it, and how it starts to interface from me to Lori, from Lori to me, from us to you. There's this coherent signaling process. And Heart Math Institute, if you guys have heard of Heart Math Institute, they have been working on a global coherent initiative for quite some time now. And they're working on trying to prove the connection between these bodies and consciousness, and not just consciousness of the individual, but the collective consciousness. And it's a very amazing process. I'm going to share my screen here on my smart device so you guys can take a peek at some of the things. I'm going to try to go through this quickly so we can get done here. Let me see here. But this coherence project is, let's see here. Here we go. Let's go back to the picture to get rid of me. All right. You can see this. This is the Global Coherence Initiative, an overview. And the experiment is to the Earth, and it's constantly bathed in this electromagnetic field. And when I talk about when we are perceiving content from the outside world into our bodies, we're seeing it through the frequencies of light. Yes, if we're seeing it, if we're smelling it, there's another frequency through the olfactory nerve. If we're touching it, there's another frequency. All this is electromagnetic fields at different wavelengths. And the Earth has its own, and we are part of it, and we're also adding to it. So these fields, they affect and connect every living thing, everything. It's all connected. So what's trying to happen now is to see that, okay, yes, there's a very large, but also how the very small grouping of people can have an influence on this collective. And then also what frequencies, or I should say what modality, is actually having the greatest influence. And it's not thought, it's emotion, as I mentioned before. So this initiative, it includes some monitoring systems, very sophisticated monitoring systems. The original coherence program had these large, just very few large monitoring systems around the planet. Now, the Global Consciousness Project 2.0 is making some smaller measuring devices that we can go out and have citizen scientists, right? So now people can participate in this particular project and start to build a network of information globally to where we can now have one of these pieces that are actually measuring our, it's a random noise generator, but it's measuring coherence. It's kind of a cool scientific stuff. They're also working on how the trees and the monitoring network within nature is significant. And there's also an app that we can get for free. You can take that, look at that. It's a Global Coherence app. And then connecting these communities and kind of building a model globally. Now, the reason I'm talking about this is because here is a magnetic field visualization from NASA's this project that they're working on. It's a mission that's been going on for a couple of years, but the little white spot in the center of the screen, that's Earth, and the colored fields around it is the electromagnetic and the magnetic fields of the Earth, and it changes constantly, dynamically moving. And there are certain things that happen in our world that influence this, and all the way down to the individual. They're measuring these frequencies, and all the way down to the individual. I want to show you this because the Earth's magnetic field, its resonant frequency is 0.1 hertz. 0.1 hertz. Now, guess what? The resonant frequency of your heart, 0.1 hertz. Okay, so the rhythm, the connection between the Earth and these human bodies, you can't discount the influence on both or either. So this is just something I wanted to bring up, and you guys can look this stuff up anytime you wish, and kind of get a little bit more feel around what this project is. But there's study after study after study now that, and Dr. Joe's community, Heart Math Institute, is putting some of these systems in place so that the group, 1,800, 1,500, 2,000 people, can be measured, and the influence of these people can be documented as to what it's doing on this planet. So it's now shown that so many of the body itself and what frequency it emits is having an influence on the collective. Not the whole, but I'm talking about just you. Just you. Each one of us here. How many are here on the call? 30 plus. Each one of you has a distinct frequency, and you're always amplifying something. So the question is, if we have an angry temperament, again, like I said, it's none of you guys, but if there's someone that has an angry temperament that is in a frequency, an emotional response, justified or not, you get cut off in traffic. Okay. But when you sway your body, your emotional response over to anger, frustration, and start giving some sign language, whatever it is, you're amplifying a signal, and not just yours, but globally. And as Lori mentioned earlier at the beginning of our call, it's more important now than ever that we start to feed the global consciousness a different signal. Amplify a more coherent signal around a healing frequency. Healing frequency is everything from the heart above. Survival frequencies are not healing. They move us into a sympathetic nervous system, a fight or flight. And sometimes that's okay. I mean, if we're in a stress response, no big deal. If we have to survive some catastrophic event, okay. Fragrance reminds you of its fragrance in the present moment, not for what it represents in the past. Does that make sense? So hopefully you guys are getting a little bit of a handle on this equation, what this equation means, what's on the right side of the equal sign, what's on the left side of the equal sign, and your power to create a result. So Lori, you want to add something to this?
I'm so fascinated by all of it. And I guess what I'd really like to add is we really have a responsibility to society, to each other, to this planet, to stay out of fear. There's a lot going on out there, a lot. And it is really easy. I don't even watch the news. And the stuff that comes across my radar screen sometimes can be pretty raw and earth-shattering. And for a minute, I'll start to go down a rabbit hole of, oh my God, what if? What if that actually happens? And then I catch myself and I say, no, that's only feeding it. That's only feeding what we don't want to happen. So even though it's a possible reality, there's also a possible reality out there that something wonderful can happen. And I don't care who you listen to, you're going to be hearing, we are in some chaotic times. And we may experience some chaos this year that's a little more intense than maybe what we've experienced in the past. But that's because before there's a rebalancing, there's a chaotic state. So as we're moving through whatever it is that comes our way, whatever it is, we've got to stay in a state of love. And grab your Healy, grab your Heelys, grab your mag Heelys, run coherence, run coherence, run coherence. Run it for yourself, run it for your home, run it for the world. And don't ever think for 1 minute that you as one person can't make a difference, because you can. And it's our moral obligation to be the ones holding the light, to be the ones emitting the love, because we understand. The masses don't. The masses aren't on this call. There's 30 plus of you on this call, not 300,000 or 3 million. There's a reason for that. Not everybody is as awake as each of you. So I'm asking you, because you know these things, to really monitor yourselves and to really put it into action. And Ken and I are tossing around an idea of another event that we might throw out there. So stay tuned, watch your emails, watch our posts, because we really, really want to make a difference with this.
100%. And one of the things that science is doing today is using these random generators, very sophisticated random generators, to start to prove the interface between technology and consciousness. And this is significant because what separates life from any technology is consciousness. Okay, because technology doesn't have a consciousness, right? Life has a consciousness. Now everything has a level of consciousness. Even a rock, right, has a level of consciousness. But it's the higher consciousness levels that start to that interface and influence. Like I said, we're amplifying or we're nullifying all the time. We're whatever we're strongly feeling or believing, we're amplifying. Whatever strong response you have, the stronger the response, the more amplification. And there's other signals out there that will get on board with you. These random generators that science is using they're now putting them. This is what I mentioned earlier. HeartMath Institute is allowing citizen scientists to have these random generators and be part of an organization. If you were to look up GCP, what is it called? I think it's GCP 2, the number 2, GCP, the number 2.net. You can get on board with what science is doing. And if you want to participate with what they're doing and trying to look at the analytics, then definitely do it. But guess what's built in to Healy? A random generator. That's how it interfaces with consciousness, your consciousness. Okay. So science and technology is amazing. So what's out there can also be scary. Just know that the science that Healy is using is gaining a lot of traction, and it's getting bigger in the analysis and interface with consciousness. So don't take it lightly. We all have a job to do, and I would love to leave you guys with a formula of release. A formula of release. When we're trying to change anything, there needs to be some understanding of how, right? How do we change something? And there's a formula to releasing things. 3 main significant parts that are on the left side of the equation, or the left side of the equal sign. Number 1, how are you assigning meaning? How are you assigning meaning? To what? Any experience, any present moment. How are you assigning meaning? Just take a moment. How am I assigning meaning to this? What is it the meaning I'm assigning right now? That's under your control. Okay. Number 2, surrender the old self. I'm sorry. Surrender is probably the hardest thing, and especially when it comes to the masculine. Some of the masculine has a hard time surrendering. I'm talking about surrendering the old self, the one that's not being served by the present activities or actions. Surrender the old self. That's number 2. Number 3, and Lori mentioned it earlier, connect to your heart. Connect to your heart. That frequency, 0.1 hertz, is the heart in coherence. That's the heart in coherence. HRV, the heart rate variability, is like almost no variability. It's in coherence. You're in a level playing field. The heart is steadily pounding away smoothly. And that means that the mind and the heart are in sync. The mind's not wandering all over the place, having chaotic activities, influencing the heart. The heart's not concerned about yesterday or tomorrow. It's in the present moment. But find that connection to your heart. That's number 3. And what happens is the other side of the equal sign, the right side, 2 things happen. Number 1, and most significant, is healing. Healing. The body itself starts to heal. And number 2, there's a new understanding, because the moment you have a healing within your body, how do you feel? What do you now understand differently? Because there's a new you awakening. And guess what? Sorry, side effect I need to mention, disclaimer clause now. You're going to need to find a new tribe. I'm just saying, right? This new awareness, suddenly you don't fit an old model. And that's okay. Because healing, if it's our objective, who gives a crap about the old model? Right? Let's step up.
And you still have us. You still have us.
I'll be your tribe. I'm here. We're here. Lori and I are here. That's why we're here.
Yeah.